we need to discuss how network hosts connect to the network. There's actually 5 different ways that we're going to review right here. And I do need to emphasize that this is just a review. We're not going to go into great depth right now as to how each of these work. We're just going to provide you with a high-level overview so you have a good feel for the different ways that you can connect a computer system to the network. The first one we need to look at is one of the most common and most popular ways to connect a host to the network, and that is an Ethernet connection. Ethernet connections are used by organizations large and small. Many home networks now even use Ethernet connections to connect systems together. 5-6 years ago, this was unheard of at home. Now it's becoming quite common. Essentially, with the Ethernet network, you have a host system. To connect it to the Ethernet network, you install an Ethernet network adapter in here, and then you connect that Ethernet adapter with a piece of networking cable, whether it be fiber optic or coaxial or twisted pair, and then you connect it to the network medium. The next way you can connect a network host to a network is through an ISDN connection, or Integrated Services Digital Network. Now, I have to tell you, ISDN is extremely popular in Europe. It's not terribly popular in the United States. In fact, I would say it's rather unlikely that you're going to come across an ISDN connection now in the USA. Now, just like with Ethernet, for an ISDN connection, we may have a host here. We install an ISDN interface in the host, and then we connect it to an ISDN network. Now, an ISDN network is usually provided by your telecommunications provider, in other words, your phone company. And they'll either run a special line to your house, or they will take one of your existing phone lines and multiplex it using broadband signaling to allow both a phone conversation or an ISDN connection to be established on the medium at the same time. Now, it's also possible that you might have, with an ISDN connection, you could have a host, and then you could have an Ethernet interface installed in the host. Then you could have an external ISDN connector right here that connects to your telecommunications provider, and then you connect your host workstation to this external interface using an Ethernet cable. The next type of network connection we need to talk about is DSL, or a digital subscriber line. DSL, unlike ISDN, is very widely implemented in the United States, less so in Europe. Digital subscriber lines work in a very similar manner to an ISDN line. What you have is a host workstation, and then most likely what you have is some kind of external DSL interface. Now, there's 2 different ways that this can be implemented. You can have your host here connect to the ISDN interface using a USB cable, or you could connect it with an Ethernet cable. Either way, there's some type of connection from your host to the DSL interface. Then the DSL interface connects to your good old telecom provider, local phone company, who, like with ISDN, use broadband signaling to divide your phone line into multiple channels so that you can have a voice conversation going on at the same time that you have data DSL connection going. You can also use a modem to connect a network host to a network. Now, this is confusing for a lot of folks. They don't usually think of modems as a network interface, but really that's exactly what it does. The way a modem works, you have a host system here, then you either have a modem that's installed as a interface card in an expansion bus, or maybe it's an external device. Either way, it works the same. And then this modem is connected to your plain old telephone service, otherwise known as POTS. And on the other end, you have another system somewhere that also has a modem installed in it. What a modem does is it takes your digital PC data, your zeros and ones, and it converts it into an analog signal. Basically the same type, a sound signal, for lack of a better word, and then it transmits this through a regular telephone line. The host on the other end receives this analog signal, the sound signal, going through the phone line and converts it back into the original binary data. Now, modems used to be very, very, very popular. However, they have a theoretical limit. Most phone lines will only support a signaling rate of about 56 kilobits per second. Now, compared to the old days of modems when we were talking about 1200 bits per second, 56 kilobits per second is really fast. However, compared to DSL or ISDN, this is awful slow. So we're starting to see modems kind of fade away. Not real fast, but they're going in favor of DSL in America and ISDN in Europe. The last type of connection we need to discuss is a wireless connection. Now, notice up to this point, with Ethernet, ISDN, DSL, and dial-up, we're dealing with some type of wire, right, that connects the host to the network. Wireless skips that. We no longer have a physical wire connecting the host to the network. Instead, we have some type of network interface installed in the system. It could be internal, a little antenna over here. You can also purchase wireless interfaces that exist outside the system that plug into the system through a USB connection. Either way works just fine. And instead of using a wire for a network medium, the wireless host transmits its information using radio waves. Now, it's also possible to purchase a system that does this very same thing using infrared light. However, they're not nearly as widely implemented, nor are they terribly popular. Wireless radio is the up-and-coming thing. So those are the 5 different ways that a host can be connected to a computer network. We can connect using an Ethernet connection, through an ISDN connection, through a DSL connection, through a dial-up modem connection, or through a wireless connection.